Richard, it's interesting to hear some of the acronyms you were using, which are definitely probably from Neil Ryland, who is the person that represented me to ask me to speak here today. So just to kind of lead on from James's introduction, my name's Skye. I'm a senior account executive at Peakon and about to move into an account manager role. But really what I want to talk to you about today kind of applies in both contexts, to be honest. It's not really around one specific deal, but actually what are the things that you can do as an individual to really set yourselves apart when it comes to working a deal. I'd be surprised if there's one single salesperson in this room that hasn't been in that situation where you have great momentum on a deal, but something falls slightly short and suddenly it gets stuck, and actually you come up against it in a forecasting conversation or in another situation, and you're kind of grasping at ideas and clutching at straws saying, why aren't they coming back to me? So I joined Peakon, which is a people analytics employee engagement platform, about 9 months ago. And one of the biggest motivators for that is for our CRO. He is well known within the sales industry and a really exceptional sales leader. And I felt that I personally had got to a point where I really wanted to understand how I could go from sort of being maybe at that kind of in between that A-B level to like really being able to set myself apart. And I think a lot of what I want to talk about today actually echoes from what you referenced at the Sales Off conference, really about the authentic selling. So how do you get away from being that person that's named as a salesperson and actually becoming a person in working that deal as a number one? And then the second part is, how do you use the people around you on an internal and external basis to actually drive and move forward deals and make sure when it comes to a close, your deal, your company, and you as a person are the people and the situation that everyone's talking about, not the competitors that are maybe coming in with slashed prices because they're worried about beating you or, you know, downgrading maybe the value of their product. So where it kind of starts for me personally is internally within your business. When you have a deal and it is tough to get it off the ground, how do you get other people to be interested in that? And I think that comes from the ability to manage internal relationships. Even if you're not best friends with everyone, what did you learn in the discovery or before going into that deal that you can then leverage to get people and other people interested? So to give you kind of example, I was speaking to a customer today. We work with Pret, and the customer I'm trying to get into now is looking at every product across the board. So they don't really know and haven't decided what they want to do. So my goal for that meeting was to make sure when I left, we were going to be the chosen provider, knowing that we will probably come in as the most expensive, and that's always a challenge in like the hospitality and consumer space. In making sure that I understood exactly their problems and their focus as a franchise organization, I was able to reference the right customers, not just name dropping for name dropping's sake, but talking about the right customers, which meant he then said, oh, fantastic, you've just talked about two businesses that also have board members that we sit on our board as well as theirs. So immediately I have not even just exec buy-in, but board level buy-in to my deal. People that weren't necessarily going to be interested, I've now got an amazing place to start in getting that exec level conversation going right from the get-go. The other part is then coming back to the business and making sure I have the opportunity to sit down with the people that are very involved in the deals that I was referencing and understanding actually what's the value that I need to bring back. So I talked about franchising organizations. To be honest, that's actually really quite complicated and not an easy thing to do with the platform we have. It's possible, but it's definitely not my area of strength in trying to tell that to the customer. So going back to the business saying, I need your help on X, Y, and Z, and actually kind of giving them something to feel sort of elevated, I guess is the best way to put it. I need your advice. I think one thing that maybe is a downfall for us as salespeople sometimes is going full charge into a deal. You kind of become quite protective and territorial over it, and you want all the credit. But actually, when you step back from it, probably the best deals you have are the ones that are really like a team deal. You actually have to give credit to the fact that you are the one on the front line. Everyone's going to celebrate you when you win, but they're also going to put your neck on the guillotine if it falls apart. But ultimately, there are other people that buy into that. So I think actually being able to manage those internally is really how you start to set yourself apart. The second thing is, and I think you mentioned this, Richard, is actually understanding the people that you're working with, not just they're the people you want to buy and they're the people that are going to spend the money, but actually, like, what is the stage of life that they are at? Are they having children? For example, I had a customer who just had a baby, asked for our marketing team to create a baby grow with our brand on it and sent it to the customer. It might sound a bit far and it might sound a bit cheesy to some of you, but actually their baby, whether they use it or not, has a Peakon baby grow in their drawer. And instead of just using, the standardized channels of LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, whatever it is these days, WhatsApp, Instagram even stalked a customer on Instagram one day, but whatever it is, they have now a way of setting me apart from just being a salesperson, and actually I'm a person that does care about what they're going through in life. And I think that is, again, like a big point. You are a person, and I think the way sales has moved these days is it's a lot more consultative, and it's hard to sometimes get away from that stereotype of we're just, salespeople, you're just after one thing and just going after your own goals and not really thinking about what's motivating other people. So then the other things are, how do you set yourselves apart when it's a competitive situation and you know that you're very much neck and neck? Like, what does it take for you to actually really differentiate at that late stage in a deal? So I think this really kind of comes to light when you show that you actually care and are willing to go and put in those, what I would call, extra 1%ers. So for me, that's you go to a conversation, you go to a meeting, you send a follow-up email, you summarize everything really accurately. But do you think about everyone in that meeting as an individual, or do you think about them as a collective? Because recently what we did was go to a meeting with 6-7 stakeholders, sent them a follow-up email, so everyone was in the loop and completely transparent on what was happening. But by sending them an individual follow-up, we then actually got an individual thanks from the decision maker and credit for contacting each person individually and identifying the specific pain points that they, on an individual basis, had raised as well. So it wasn't just, I'm kind of doing this for process sake and what I need to do to tick the boxes. Again, you're actually being a person within that deal. And then also, interestingly, kind of creating personality around it. So one specific example was Warburton's, where we then brought our founder in to say, I actually used to grow up eating crumpets and loaves of bread from Warburton's. That's a kind of childhood memory for me. And next thing you know, there's a Warburton's box waiting for our CEO next time we go up to Bolton to meet them. So I think for me, I guess the kind of summary points would be, setting yourself apart really is about, for me, like the personality that you bring to your deal. I think it's very easy to do all the things. I think you have to be incredibly organized, you have to be incredibly strategic, and you've got to be really focused to manage these large, huge enterprise deals. But ultimately, when it comes to setting yourself apart, like, what can you think about to do on a very personal level? And the more you can create around that, the more success there is to be had. I hope that was useful.